Hello my friends, I've got a really good story for you today. It's called The Lighthouse Keeper's Tea. I know a lot of you have read this already. It's one of my favourites. It's written and illustrated by Rhonda and David Armitage, and it's a lovely scholastic book. The Lighthouse Keeper's Tea. Mr. and Mrs. Grindling lived with their cat Hamish and his family in a little white house perched high on a cliff. Some days Mr. Grindling was the lighthouse keeper, but other days he just got in Mrs. Grindling's way. Mr. G, you're always under my feet, complained Mrs. Grindling. Mr. Grindling sighed. I'm bored, Mrs. G. Now that Sam helps out the lighthouse, I haven't got enough to do. I wonder what things they're going to come up with to help Mr. Grindling. Oh, a new pastime, said Mrs. Grindling. That's what you need. What do you enjoy doing? Eating, suggested Mr. Grindling. He dipped his finger in the icing. That's it, he said. The perfect pastime. If I like eating, I'm sure I'd like cooking. Mrs. Grindling looked alarmed. Perhaps I could help? No, thank you, said Mr. Grindling. I can do it myself. You have a little rest while I make some bread for our lunch. Just pop in these ingredients, mix them about a bit, and hey presto, the bread will be ready in no time. The bread rose and rose and flopped. When Mr. Grindling tried to put it in the oven, the dough slithered everywhere. I don't like cooking, he decided. Much too messy. Do you like cooking? I like cooking. I like cooking cakes and biscuits. Oh dear, such a pity, said Mrs. Grindling. Perhaps something outdoors would suit you better. What about bird watching with your telescope? Good idea, Mrs. G, agreed Mr. Grindling. I could keep an eye on those pesky seagulls. So he packed a little something and set out. Here's your warm jumper, Mrs. Grindling called after him. No, thank you, replied Mr. Grindling. It's a beautiful day. Look at that sun. He didn't see any seagulls, but he did spy 5 green finches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 mistle thrushes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 mallard ducks. 1, 2, 3. And 2 black swans. 1, 2. And a kingfisher on the riverbank. I'm enjoying this, thought Mr. Grindling. Nice change from seagulls. It was during lunch that he remembered that he didn't like cows. Shoo, he said bravely. Moo, mooed the gentle cows. Mr. Grindling scrambled up the tree while the cows finished his cheese, lettuce and tomato sandwiches. Oh dear, he's not having a very good time, is he? He rang Sam. Help, help, I'm sure I've just seen a dangerous wild boar. Sam was surprised. A wild boar? Ferocious, said Mr. Grindling. And I'm very cold. Please rescue me. Where are you? asked Sam. Well, explained Mr. Grindling, I'm up a very thin tree in a field, surrounded by a green hedge and a few cows. Ooh. Wonder if Sam comes. It took Sam several hours to find him. No more bird watching, said Mr. Grindling. Far too dangerous with all those wild cows, said Sam helpfully. And the seagulls say, silly Billy. Wild boar? What a joke. But Mr. Grindling was still bored. Oh dear, he thought, there must be something I enjoy. He tried the violin, but that was too screechy for everyone. He went out with his kite, but that was too windy. And then there was the rollerblading, but that was an absolute disaster. Oh dear. Perhaps old dogs can't learn new tricks, teased Mrs. Grindling. Old? Spluttered Mr. Grindling. Did you say old? Sea dogs like me are never too old to learn new tricks. I just haven't found the perfect one yet. Said Mrs. Grumbling. Do you think she believes him? I'm not so sure. One morning in Wild Horses Bay, Mr. Grindling met Sam carrying a large board. He was surprised. I didn't know you were a surfer, Sam. Oh, one of the best, boasted Sam, and he rode the big waves while Mr. Grindling watched. I wish I could do that, said Mr. Grindling. Come and have a go, called Sam. Oh dear. He pulled Mr. Grindling onto the surfboard. There might be a bit of a problem, Mr. Grindling tried to explain, but Sam didn't hear him. Mr. Grindling stood up on the surfboard and fell off the surfboard. Swim, shouted Sam. Glug, glug, glugged Mr. Grindling. I can't, he spluttered. That's the bit of a problem. Sam shook his head. If you want to be a surfer, that's not a bit of a problem. That's an enormous problem. An extremely good floater, said Mr. Grindling hopefully. Sam was firm. If you can't swim, you can't be a surfer. But Mr. Grindling had made up his mind. Surfing was what he wanted to do most in the world. Wow. Well, he knows what he wants to do. Wonder how he's going to solve his problem. Don't breathe a word to Mrs. G, said Mr. Grindling. She thinks old dogs can't learn new tricks. I'll show her this one can. Shall I help you with the swimming? Asked Sam. No, thank you, said Mr. Grindling. I know exactly what to do. He found a rock in just the right place and lowered himself into the water. I splash with my arms like this and kick with my feet like this. And then I do both together. Glug, glug, glugged Mr. Grindling as he splashed wildly. Help! Help! Cried Mr. Grindling. I'm drowning. Lucky I'm such a good floater, he remembered. Mr. Grindling turned over. He floated around the old jetty and through the needles. He floated beside the white sand beach and over the wreck of the Hesperus. He floated across the channel, rippling with irritable little waves. Oh my goodness, he's floating a long way. He floated past the lighthouse and the little white house. At last he floated up onto the beach. Perhaps I do need a little bit of help, he whispered to Hamish as he crept to bed. And there's Hamish, his cat. Join today, said the notice at the Green Lagoon pool. I've come to learn to swim, said Mr. Grindling. We've got just the class for you, replied the swimming instructor. First, we'll try the kicking. Glug, glug, glugged Mr. Grindling, and he sank to the bottom of the pool. Now we'll use our arms, called the instructor. Splash, splash, splashed Mr. Grindling, but he still sank. The children watched. We'll help you, Mr. Grindling, they said, and they did. Wow, what a beautiful bunch of children that is. Soon he could dog paddle, freestyle, backstroke, and butterfly. Congratulations, said the swimming instructor. I always say you're never too old to learn. Wow, I wonder if he could have done it without the help of the children. Perhaps not. Well done, exclaimed Sam. Now I'll show you how to surf. No, thank you, said Mr. Grindling. I'll do it myself. stubborn old sea dog, said Sam quietly. Mr. Gwynling bought a bright yellow wetsuit and a shiny red surfboard. Every day he practiced where he thought no one could see him, and every day he fell into the water hundreds of times. 1001, muttered Mr. Gwynling as he scrambled onto the board again. This time I'll do it, he said to the seagulls. I think he needs a helping hand, said Sam to the children. Are you ready for action? And the seagull says, he's pretty hopeless, Fred. He should have stuck to cooking, Tom. And here are all the children having a look at Mr. Gwynling. Seven shark fins rose in the water. Blather my whiskers, shouted Mr. Gwynling. 7 sharks surfed beside him. Mr. Gwynling stayed on the surfboard all the way to the shallows. Goodness me, that's a lot of sharks. Oh, hope he's okay. 7 sharks climbed out of the water. Oh, goodness me. Well, cried Sam, our shark trick certainly helped an old sea dog learn his new trick. You frightened the life out of me, said Mr. Gwynling, but a grin stretched right across his face. And there he is. Oh, have a look. He's really happy. It wasn't long before Mr. Gwynling could ride the waves just like a real surfer. Now I can show Mrs. Gwynling, he announced. Not yet, not yet, begged the children. We thought of the perfect occasion. Wonder what that might be. He looks pretty snazzy doing it already. And here is the little seagull up there saying, I know where he is. On the day of the Wild Horse Bay Sea Carnival, Mrs. Gwynling searched high and low for Mr. Gwynling. I don't understand. He always entered the sandcastle competition and runs in the sack race. Whatever's happened to him? Wherever can he be? She asked the children. Oh, don't worry, they said, as they arranged a deck chair for her. So you can get a better view of the surfing, they explained, and they all lined up at the water's edge. As the big wave rose up across the bay, the drums began to roll. Mrs. Gwynling watched the little round figure on the surfboard. Oh, such daring, she exclaimed. Amazing, she cheered. Extraordinary, she gasped. Who might that be? I think we know. And there he is. How cool is that? The figure in the yellow surfed almost to her feet. He peeled off his wetsuit and bowed. I'd like you to meet an old sea dog, he said. Mrs. Gwynling was speechless. She gave Mr. Gwynling a great big hug. I did it all by myself, he said proudly, with a little help from Sam and the children. In that case, said Mrs. Gwynling, I think we should have a splendiferous surfing tea. We'll help if you like, said the children. Oh, look, and there's the children helping to do the baking. And no Mr. Gwynling in sight. And they did. And there are the seagulls. Looks like tea time, boys. Gosh, they're eating again. Yum, yum. Let's pop down and see what's on the menu. Wow. That is such a good story. I hope you enjoyed listening to it and watching it. Until next time, my friends, ka kite.